Welcome to another fun-filled Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in Living Color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Mr. Kim McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brownhead. That's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow me at Kim McGee on the Twitter and at KXRB on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. You want to know why? Because we said so, that's why. And also, you can catch up on the other live shows we have airing throughout the week. So, happen to miss, you can go back and watch them and listen to them at your own leisure. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app today. Speaking of Sports Zone Chicago, please follow us on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, that's Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. And please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WAR Media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. You have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can hit us up in the comment section, especially for our next guest at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But decide to troll and do something silly or stupid. I've given Lakina full power to give you fools the bill and be a boot. Bye-bye. But before we begin, we must remind you that you also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap that sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku TV, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your personal PC, your Chromebook, and all the other good stuff, just go to that Google Play Store, go to that Roku TV app, and download Sports Zone Chicago through the avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV.
Anytime, anywhere you like.
And you know we will provide.
All right, so let's get right to it. We got a busy show here for us, for all this today. We got our buddy Christy Manika from KXRB joining us, since you missed last week, we'll catch up with her. But we got another one of our faves on the line. You can listen to on 670 The Score, filling in also too, covering the Bears as he's done the last few years. So he's the one, the only, the fabulous and handsome Mr. Mark Grote. Mark, how are you?
What's going on? Tina and Sydney, how you guys doing? What's cooking?
We're doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great. I am doing well. Just did the morning show on The Score, and now I'm talking to you guys, and there's probably going to be a nap in my future at some point in time today, so that makes me feel good.
We won't keep you too long. So Mark, so let's get right to it for the Bears talk. Of course, with the Bears going to be starting training camp in a couple of weeks. What do you think the ceiling is? I mean, we've heard about all the signings and and everything else. Justin Fields, could he take that next step this year? What do you think the ceiling is for the Bears this year?
Man, if we're looking at a ceiling for this year, I guess the best way to quantify that would be record. I would say ceiling 9 wins, maybe 10 wins, something like that. But I suppose we could also talk about the ceiling in terms of Justin Fields' development as well. And I think, the ceiling for that would be, 21 touchdown passes, 6 or 7 interceptions, whatever the case may be, 3,000 yards. I mean, but we're talking ceilings here. So that's not necessarily the top notch, but just off the top of my head, I guess those for this season with the improvements that they made, relative to a season where they lost 10 straight games, I can't, like I said, probably 9 or 10 wins at a ceiling.
We know that everything starts and ends with star quarterback Justin Fields, who's expected to take the next step. But even though we're a little bit over a week away from training camp starting for the Bears, what other areas of the team are you focused on? The special teams, the defense, the offensive line? What other areas that you will be focused on when the Bears start training camp in over a week?
Yeah, I think that we have talked so much about the offense, and it's all worthy, and I'm sure we can talk a lot about the offense here in this podcast. But I think that the defense was just so atrocious last year that I'm looking forward to seeing some of the new people in action this year, like the new look linebacking crew with TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds. Jack Sanborn in his second year is going to continue to hopefully improve and, make us all feel like he's for real and that he can be there. So I'm looking forward to seeing that in action. And then the Bears were pretty, decisive about defense in the draft too, with Javon Dexter, the defensive lineman out of Florida, Tariq Stevenson, the cornerback out of Miami, Zach Pickens, the other defensive lineman. So it's heartening to see young talent and the Bears understanding where their downfall essentially was. And as much as, again, we obsess over offense, and justifiably so, because we live in Chicago and we cover the Bears, it was the defense that almost seemed like, to some degree, got a pass, just like the entire team got a pass last year. But I want to see if the defense actually is better. I think it's going to be better, but can it be substantially better? Because if it's not, then the Bears are going to be a team that would be capable of losing 10 straight games again.
Yeah. What about guys like Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet? I know with the addition of DJ Moore, you got to think he's going to be kind of like the top guy for the Bears, that Justin's going to throw to. So do you see either one of them? I know Mooney's been very, not vocal per se, but very adamant about that. This could be a big year for him. But who do you think about, and also Chase Claypool too, I'm sure he's got a lot to prove as well. Who do you think is going to be sort of like that breakout guy on the playmaking side?
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching the connection between Justin Fields and DJ Moore, just, getting to go to the OTA camps a month ago. And I can't wait to see that in action, because even in slow motion, no pads, all that kind of stuff, you could see how good and adept DJ Moore is at running routes and exploding out of those routes as well. So that's going to be fun to see. Not worried about Darnell Mooney. I think Mooney is very capable of a 1,000-yard season. We know that. We have seen a 1,000-yard season out of him if he could stay healthy, and if there's some extra muscle that we've been hearing about for Darnell Mooney, that's going to be very helpful for him too. Chase Claypool's the wild card. Well, Chase Claypool did not have a good time with the Bears last year. He did not have a good season very little connection with Justin Fields, and that has to go to the next level. They're all saying all the right things about that. Looking forward to seeing that connection. And then, you mentioned Cole Kmet, Lakina, and he's definitely a guy that the Bears obviously like, but it's not like he's a superstar or even a star at this point. He's a decent tight end in the NFL. So I want to see him go to the next level, because I think the talent exists. But yeah, it's like there's still a lot of what ifs, as you could hear in my voice. The one sure thing I think is DJ Moore and Darnell Mooney, but the rest is a lot of what ifs and what the Bears are able to add around those wide receivers. Who else is going to contribute? Will Tyler Scott, the kid out of Cincinnati, is he going to get on the field? Is he going to make an impact? We don't know yet. So there's a lot to be answered still about the passing game between Justin Fields and all the guys that we all just mentioned.
We're talking Chicago Bears with 670 The Scores. Mark Grote right here on Second City Sports, on Sports Zone Chicago. We're live and live in color. Sid Lakina here with you. Mark, you mentioned some of the rookie wide receivers on the Bears. I want to bring up now second-year wide receiver out of Tennessee, Velus Jones. He had a couple of impact plays last year, but pretty much for the most part, he was a head coach Matt Eberflus's doghouse last year. What do you expect from the second-year wide receiver?
Well, I think he's going to get a chance to return kicks again. I think that he became pretty good at that by the end of the year. I think they're still going to use him. I think that, he was a disappointment last year in about every possible way until the last couple of games when, the proverbial pressure is off. He started to look like the receiver and returner that we were told that we were going to get in terms of the Velus Jones skill set. So I think that there, hopefully you see the second year bump he got over. Hopefully he's over some of the yips he had with the punt. I don't know if they're going to give him another chance on the return punts or not. I would not advise that. But I do think that there's a place for Velus Jones Jr. in this offense, and I don't think they're giving up on him yet.
Looking at the quarterback roster for the Chicago Bears, of course, you have P.J. Walker, the former Carolina Panther, and of course, you have Nathan Peterman, who was on this roster last year. Well, is there going to be a real how real is it going to be a battle for that number 2 quarterback spot? Because you know as well as I do that most NFL teams, and not all NFL teams, do not carry 3 quarterbacks. So, how real is this competition for the number 2 quarterback spot will be?
Yeah, I think it's going to be PJ Walker's job. That he's going to definitely be your number 2 quarterback. And yeah, you're right. I mean, sometimes they'll keep a third guy on. A lot of times they'll stuff that guy on the practice squad. But PJ Walker is going to be the guy. And honestly, like we all know from covering the Bears, and whether you're fans of the Bears, obviously. At some point in time, you're probably going to see the second string quarterback playing a game, and it's typically because so you want that guy ready to go. So I think that they signed PJ Walker to be their number 2 quarterback. So barring injury, I think he's the guy. Yeah.
I'm back now. Sorry about that, folks. Technical difficulties. Yeah. Demo disappearing there for a second. My next trick. Let's talk about Eddie Jackson for a second, Mark. And of course, he had the injury last year. Didn't play, I think, like 9 or 10 games. Do you think he kind of come back and sort of be at least a fraction of what we saw from those early years, from Eddie Jackson?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think assuming health, like you said, he's played pretty well. He played pretty well last year. I think he. There seems to be a revival with him in terms of working with Matt Eberflus and working with Alan Williams, the defensive coordinator. This regime really likes Eddie Jackson, and that's it's a relative rarity when a new regime comes in and they kind of fall in love with players from the past regime. So assuming health, I think Eddie Jackson is going to be a huge part of this season, and I think that he's still got a lot of good football left in him. And I think that he and Jaquan Brisker seem to be a nice combination. I think it's the best combination that I've seen Eddie Jackson with really since the Adrian Amos days. So I hope that continues. You can tell that Jaquan Brisker. He was very good for a rookie. He's got a jump to make this year, and he dealt with his own injuries. But I really love that combo of safeties with the Bears this year.
Let's go back to the offense market, focusing on the running game. Of course, the Bears are known throughout their history for running the football well. Of course, they did that last year with the tandem of Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery, now who's moved on to Detroit. But they brought in Deonta Foreman and Travis Homer via free agency in the offseason. Is it safe to assume that Khalil Herbert is the starting running back, or will he share the carries with those other 2 names that I mentioned?
I think Khalil Herbert will be the lead back, the load back for the Bears this year. I mean, there's definitely people who have different opinions on that. Some people think it's going to be Foreman, but I think Foreman is going to be talking about the carries and yards. Travis Homer, who's going to do a lot of special teams, but he'll get some carries as well. And then you have the 4th round rookie out of Texas, Roschon Johnson, who a lot of people like, but it's kind of like Roschon Johnson is the great unknown because he played behind Bijan Robinson. He seems like a really good player. He's got, everybody's telling us anyway that, including him, that he's got leadership tendencies, but I haven't seen him take a real hit yet or put the pads on. So I'm not depending on Roschon Johnson to make a big impact. So I think my pick this year is Khalil Herbert for sure. I think this is his turn to be the Bears' load back.
How much of a big impact can Darnell Wright have? I mean, he's a very experienced tackle, participating in a lot of snaps when he was at Tennessee. Do you think he can kind of be sort of like give that little bit of edge? I know you talked about the O-line earlier, but can he kind of give him that, sort of that edge that kind of keeps Justin upright?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And I just think it's nice to know going into this season that's who your right tackle is. Your right tackle, day one, barring injury, and that's the disclaimer for all of this stuff. But Darnell Wright is going to be your right tackle. You know that. Really, you can look at the whole entire offensive line. very different from last year when we had no idea what the configuration was going to be. But now with, Nate Davis and Tevin Jenkins on the inside, Darnell Wright and Braxton Jones on the outside, and not obviously, but Cody Whitehair is the center for this team this year. Yeah, whether or not this turns out to be a really good group, I don't know, but it sure gives it an advantage to know essentially from the beginning of OTAs what this lineup was going to be. I see no reason to look at Darnell Wright and say, well, I'm a little bit worried about this or I'm a little bit worried about that, because he's pretty sound in just about everything. Obviously, there could very well be growing pains. I'm not saying he's going to be a Pro Bowler, but a lot of the evidence and the tape suggests that Darnell Wright could be a good right tackle in this league for a long time.
Going back to the defense, so let's look at the defensive backs. Of course, when healthy, Jalen Johnson, I believe he's one of the top 5, top 10 best corners in the league. Who starts opposite of him? Is it Kendall Vildor, or will it be guys like Josh Blackwell or Greg Storman Jr., I should say?
Yeah, I mean, those are all good names, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that it's one of those guys, but I think that the rookie second rounder out of Miami is one to watch. His name is Tyreek Stevenson. Second rounders are expected to start. So, and I understand that is a tough position, and if they feel he's not ready, then he's not ready. But I think that Tyreek Stevenson is going to have a very good shot to be the starting outside cornerback of Jalen Johnson with Kyler Gordon on the inside. And then that would leave you with some very good depth, like guys that you mentioned, especially Josh Blackwell. I mean, I like him. And Kendall Vildor's a veteran. I don't think he's a starter in this league or a guy who should get a ton of snaps, but it's a nice guy to have around. And then they have a 5th round pick out of Minnesota named Terrell Smith, who is a cornerback as well, who we should not sleep on either, that he may be a sleeper in this draft. So look out for the rookies as far as competing for those other cornerback spots.
How do you think the Bears sort of fit into the rest of that division? The Vikings, they basically have gotten rid of most of their top guys, or a lot of their guys have left. Detroit, you got to think they're the favorites in the NFC North. The Packers are kind of the wild card because you don't know what you're going to get with Jordan Love now, under center full time. So where do you think the Bears' sort of biggest challenge, if you will, in that NFC North?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to say Detroit, and with honorable mention to Minnesota. Just based on what Minnesota did last year, their margin of victory was suspect last year, Minnesota's that is, and then it caught up with them in the playoffs. Detroit was heavily improved. They were a couple games over 500. They did not make the playoffs last year. So teams like that seem poised to go to the next step. So I hate to take Detroit seriously, but I got to take Detroit seriously. And then the Packers, man. I mean, I don't think Jordan Love is Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers, but they're always you just never know with the Packers, man. Jordan Love was a 1st round pick. That's the kind of raw talent that he has. But so much about the Packers is going to come down to that. And sitting right here, I'm a little bit traumatized as a having covered or been a fan of the Bears my entire life. So I'm traumatized by quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers. So the idea that I'm just going to sit here and be like, oh, yeah, the Bears are in the clear because of Jordan Love. No, I'm not going to say that until I see Jordan Love play a bunch of games for real, which, he's been obviously intermittent with the Green Bay Packers at the best. But, yeah, right now I think it's Minnesota, Detroit, atop the division, and then we'll see. I mean, the Packers could be better than the Bears with Jordan Love. It's just the domination portion that's probably not going to be there with the Packers anymore.
Don't say that about domination with the Packers. Hopefully, we dominate them. I like to see that.
Very painful. Yeah.
Last moment or two with Mark Grote from 670 The Score. He's the Chicago Bears beat reporter. He's hanging out with us on the Friday edition of Second City Sports. Sid Lakina hanging out with you. Mark, Of course, NFL Films and HBO will be following Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets this year for Hard Knocks. Of course, the NFL has a rule: if no team voluntarily wants to do it, the NFL forces to pick an NFL team. Me personally, I still want to see the Chicago Bears on Hard Knocks at some point. What do you think about this? Was it a good idea for the McCaskies to pass up Hard Knocks? What are your feelings about this?
It's not surprising. Unfortunately, I like George McCaskey. I respect Virginia, but like sometimes they're just afraid to do like cool stuff, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I agree. Let's switch gears here a little bit. I know I heard you on filling in for Mully on Mully and Hall earlier. The Cubs and the Sox are back at it, starting tonight. Both are back on their respective central divisions. Do you see either one of them perhaps maybe being buyers? Are they going to be? Was one going to be sellers and the other won't be, or they're both going to be sellers? What's your synopsis of the baseball as we start the second half?
Yeah, I think both teams are going to be in theory in position to sell. The White Sox, as you just indicated, Lakina, they're 8 games back. With a rugged schedule, right? I mean, right out of the box, they're playing 60-29 Atlanta team. So, like, good luck. They could be 9 or 10 games out before this series is up. So I think, yeah, I've lost hope in the White Sox. I know people are still excited about the Cubs because they're better than they were last year, and I think that they get more of a benefit of the doubt from the White Sox because the Sox have had their core longer, and the Cubs are building something. But guess what? The Cubs now, all of a sudden, are 7 games out in a division where there's a couple teams that are starting to separate themselves, and that's Milwaukee and Cincinnati. So neither team, the Cubs or the White Sox, can look at their divisions as much as they did. They leaned on their divisions as an excuse to still be in the race. It's getting away from them. So, either team can make a run, but honestly, Lakina, if I'm answering the question straight up, both teams are going to be in position to sell.
Last question from me, Mark. Of course, around this time last week, we found out the horrific details about the hazing with the Northwestern football team. Of course, earlier this week, head coach Pat Fitzgerald was canned. Of course, Northwestern, shout out to the Northwestern Daily, those student reporters, Journalism Matters. I thought they did an excellent job of getting the details of that situation. What are your thoughts about how the Northwestern University handled this? And do you think that they did the right thing early this week by getting rid of Fitzgerald instead of waiting, I'm using in quotes, until the investigation was over?
Yeah, no, they did the right thing by firing Pat Fitzgerald. They've also fired the baseball coach, Jim Foster. What they didn't do right was the way they tried to bail themselves out of all of this, that they tried to control their own scandal, basically, by waiting until Friday to dump this, making people wait to report stuff. It was cowardly that they tried to do it that way, and they thought that they were going to just get out of it. And now they've done a horrible job of managing it. We haven't heard from the president, Michael Schill. We haven't heard from the athletic director, Derek Gregg. So they're, as I was saying on the air today, they are starting to get it right, but it's ugly starting to get it right, and they're backing in to getting it right. I'm glad they're starting to get it right, but the way they went about this, instead of being transparent, they tried their best. They tried their best to make it go away. So that's the part that really pisses me off, quite frankly.
I think we all feel that way. Let's end on a happy. Well, I don't want to say happier note, but let's end off that. The Bulls, of course, if you guys haven't heard, they were granted a $10.5 million. I don't know if it's an exemption or however you want to say it, from the Lonzo Ball contract. So it'll be interesting to see what AK and Eversley decide to do with that. Do they bring in somebody, or put push luxury tax, try to sign whoever is left out there on the market? So what do you think? What do you think the Bulls are going to do with that extra money?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure I necessarily trust the Bulls at this point. They're to do the right thing in terms of so far what they have done. I did like the signing of Javon Carter for 3 years and $20 million. The second rounder Julian Phillips seems like a hell of an athlete, like elite athlete. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can mold him. But I'm going through these guys because I'm just using these names to illustrate the moves that they've made so far. You know, the signing of Kobe White, 3 years and $40 million. What are they going to do with Io DeSumo? So they're not exactly making blockbuster moves. So to think that with their exemption money that they're going to do something big and really impactful, or bring in somebody that's going to change the face of the Bulls, I don't see that happening. I mean, they could do something. Look, I think that the Javon Carter signing is quality, but it doesn't move me in any way, shape, or form. So there's no evidence in this offseason, and even going back to the draft, to suggest that the Bulls are going to do anything big with their money, even though Arturas Karnisovas kind of said, on draft night, just give it, wait till you see what we're going to do. I'm paraphrasing, but we still have the entire offseason to work with. So, kind of hold your opinions, but my opinion is that there's not going to be a big blockbuster move.
All right, that's been 670 The Scores. Mark Grote, he's there, Chicago Bears beat reporter and fill-in host. You can follow him on Twitter at Mark Grote Sports. Once again, at Mark Grote Sports on the Twitter. Mark, as always, thank you very much for joining us here today. Great job here with us today. Great job on the air, as always. And if you guys didn't catch their show the other night, he co-hosted with another good friend of the show, Miss Alyssa Bergamini, doing the other night. So you guys can catch that on the podcast. Please do so, like I did earlier today. They did a great job on that. So, Mark, once again, thanks for taking the time to join us today. Much continued success, and we'll have you on again soon.
Thanks, guys. It is always a pleasure to talk to both of you. Indeed, we shall talk soon, and I'll be sweating in Bears camp soon.
Right. Yes. Love you, Mark. Stay safe.
Bye, guys.
All right. Thanks, Mark.
See ya.
Yeah. All right. That was Marcus Grote from 670 The Score. And that's it. Of course, I gotta towel off, whatever he's on. Of course, he always brings the knowledge and the humor.
We just getting started, folks.
Okay. Yeah, I would say we got more coming up. We're going to talk about the baseball as they're starting the second half, of course, and some Sox rumors. All I said about that. It's going to be
yeah, we got to dig into that.
Yeah, we do. We really do. We gotta laugh, folks. We're sorry we're laughing, but yeah.
You gotta laugh to keep them crying sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll talk some baseball second half and potential trades coming up next. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown, Second City Sports on Chicago. Diamond Talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to our Second City Sports on this Fun Friday Fun edition. We're live and in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours surely on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
Can't help it with the beat. You follow me, Lakina on the Twitter and Lakina on the IG. It's the beat. It's the beat.
Listen, 85. Yes, it is. We have less than 85 minutes left in this fabulous program we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments for us, you can always hit us up in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in your questions or comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
Okay, Sid, of course, MLB is back. Well, okay, we'll start with the All-Star game first. I'll be honest, I didn't watch a single, maybe 5 minutes of the All-Star game, and that's about it. But the NL.
Well, you did better than I did.
yeah, right. I mean, I don't think the Rays were very good in Seattle for the All-Star game. And the National League did beat the American League for the first, I think it's 15 years since the last time.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. The last time they beat the AL, and Elias Diaz from the Rockies, who I know Sid was saying that, hey, maybe we should do away with the whole every team should be represented thing. Well, he actually hit the go-ahead 2-run home run that gave the National League that win. Of course, he won MVP honors. I know the Rays were very good, but it looked for the looks of it, it looked okay. I mean, that the place was rocking up in Seattle. So, Vlad Jr. Vlad Guerrero Jr. did something that his father did 16 years ago, was win the home run derby.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think about the All-Star weekend as a week, I should say, as a whole?
Well, the home run derby was way better than the All-Star game. I'll start off with saying that with the rule changes that we talked about this last week on our shows, that the rules that they added to the home run derby over the last several years has actually made that contest better. So I like that. Congrats to Luis Robert Jr. Even though he injured his right calf, he made it to the second round. That's what I think we told you that he was going to do. And so congratulations to him on that. But the home run derby was the better of those two events. And so I have no complaints about that. The actual All-Star game itself, I knew that the Seattle Mariners organization was going to do this, but they brought out King Griffey Jr. Of course, he was part of the HBCU Classic baseball game which took place last Friday to kick off those weekend of festivities. But they brought him out. Eric Martinez, who's also a Hall of Famer. I believe Jay Buhner Bones from back in the day on those teams. They brought him out as well to throw the ceremonial first pitch prior to the All-Star game. I thought that was cool. And there was a couple of catches that were made to start off the All-Star game, which I thought was awesome as well. But other than that, I wasn't impressed by it at all. And Lakina, I don't know about you, but do you think that the teams, the All-Stars, should go back to wearing their own team's uniforms instead of wearing the ones this year? Although I've seen worse, I really wasn't impressed by him. That's just me. I know there was a lot of complaints about it on social media, but do you think they should go back to wearing their own team's uniform, just having the logo patch, All-Star patch from that year's All-Star game? Because I think that'll be much better.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I mean those uniforms when I first saw them like a couple of months ago when they released them. It was very off-putting. So yeah, I much rather prefer back in the day where the guys just wore their respective team unis and just kind of let each of the teams, if you're gonna have all the teams you represented, you'll let them represent their teams and just put like the All-Star patch or whatever the logo is, put it somewhere. I know people say, oh, that's not we don't want to be like auto racer where they've got the advertisements all over their patches or whatever, their kilts, but their kits and stuff. But yeah, I mean, look, it's sort of like, look, it's 2023. I mean, it's sort of one of those days where you gotta feel like, you know what, it's a you gotta kind of we want to have all the teams represented if you're gonna go through all that. So and plus the uniforms are just not good anyway. So like I said,
because remember back in the day, they used to have those uniforms. The players during home run derby used to sport them out as batting practice jerseys, and that was the only time you saw them. But now they changed it up these last few years, and it's not been good in my opinion.
Right, and it really hasn't, and I just feel like if the uniforms were somewhat decent, I'm okay with this, but I just don't see it happening. So yeah, it'll be interesting if they do go back to this. Like you said, I mean, the home run derby was probably like the height of the All-Star festivities. Vlad Jr. defeated Randy Arozarena from the Rays 25-23. That was a pretty thrilling final there. Of course, we said, like I said earlier, his dad, Vlad Sr., did that 16 years ago. They actually showed a picture of him during the All-Star game with little Vlad Jr. He had to be like 5 or 6 at the time. I think that makes you feel really old looking at that picture. But yeah, I mean, it was fun. I mean, it was good to see Diaz, who I'm sure a lot of people don't watch Rockies baseball, but you can seeing him sort of do the go ahead, a 2-run home run to help win it for the National League, and yeah, it was fun. It was exciting, but I'm ready for the second half to start.
Yeah, I want to ask you this quick question. I think we talked about this before a few months ago. Which of the All-Star games are the worst? Is it baseball, basketball, hockey, or football now with flag football since they stripped the actual game?
Right. Yeah. They basically kind of did. We're going to be doing like, world's fastest man, from back in the day. Remember that? Remember that?
Yeah.
All like you said, flag
now
football.
We're feeling old.
Right, I know, right? Oh, good grief, I know, right? As if seeing Vlad Jr. doesn't make you feel old. And then Kevon Biggio and all those guys.
Right.
It was all those guys from the Blue Jays. But yeah, I mean, I think, you think about, I know some people said the NBA, let's go back to sort of the same thing with the NBA All-Star, game, just let them go back to wearing although their uniforms are actually a little bit better than the baseball ones, I would think, if they want to give a little bit of the edge on that. But yeah, I think they should sort of do away, just go back to everybody wearing their respective team uniforms and just do East-West, and do it that way. The football, I mean, it doesn't really bother me too much. I mean, you knew that they were calling on penalties that were sort of, they just make a flat football at this point. The NHL All-Star game, I think, is really, we talked about it during their All-Star game. I think it's actually pretty cool seeing some of the legends of the game, be a part of it as well. So I think that helps a little bit. But I mean, I gotta say, baseball needs to do a little bit of a better job. I don't know if the way it's set up or the way that it's, being, the way it's kind of like, getting together. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see but I think baseball, probably has the worst. I know you get the football, NFL doing it at the end of this year. I think some people should, actually prefer that they do it that way right before the Super Bowl. But what do you think, Sid? I mean, I think there's really nothing. Is there anything really you can do to get people to watch these All-Star games that don't, kind of raise the stakes, I guess, right?
I guess, especially, excuse me, talking about baseball, because it's the only thing in town in terms of professional sports throughout the summer until training camp starts for football later on in the summer, late July, early August. But the NBA, they tried, different formats, with Giannis and LeBron being captains, of course, and now I think we touched on it a little bit. Now they want to go back to East-West, which I believe they should do, Go back to East-West, and make it a little bit more of a stakes for those players participating in the All-Star game. I think they'll be great. I know we'll get into the NBA Cup thing with Christine, get her thoughts on it in our next hour.
Yeah.
But as far as this All-Star game, make the stakes a little bit higher for the NBA players, I think they'll be great for that, because the last couple All-Star games have been trash. I think the last very good one was here in Chicago in 2020, right before the shutdown. That's just me personally. But,
yeah.
the NBA's been struggling with that the last few years. Now, hockey, like I said, hockey and football are the worst. Hockey, I remember back in the late 90s, it actually meant something. Yeah, they had some of the same rules like they do now. You can't forward check. There's no fighting, things along that line. But remember USA versus the World when Fox had it? Fox had the over-the-air coverage.
Right, yeah.
That made you want to watch the All-Star game. It made you want to watch the All-Star game. Now, I know they break it down to divisions. Of course, the third period, which is the third game, whoever the division winners are, they fight out. Now they want to decide to play hockey. I'm using air quotes here for those listening back on the replay on our podcast. But hockey and football are the worst, to be honest with you. Like we said before, the NFL should change it, which they did last year. And it looks like they'll keep that format for a while. Hockey, I don't know what the hell you could do. I really don't.
Well, like you said, they've been doing the division thing, and I guess that's okay to get all the teams to participate. But like you said, I mean, there's really nothing like unless you say, hey, they do like the money for charity thing. Do they do like kind of like an all-in sort of thing, like the AN1, from back, from a few years back, you do it that way. But I don't really think there's anything you can do to kind of make these All-Star games better. I mean, it's just like they're just there for what they are. So I don't know what else you can do.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
This is I could. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I couldn't agree with you more.
All right, this is Second City Sports on Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Let's talk about those trade rumors, some various trade rumors that have come out across the pipe the last few days. The Dodgers seem to be interested in Lucas Giolito.
What a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, I know he wants to stay, he's been very adamant he wants to stay, but I know he gets it as a business, and it might be, the thing is that, the Dodgers actually have a pretty solid farm system, so you got to wonder, like, who on their farm system would they be willing to trade to get Giolito, because they definitely need starting pitching depth. And I think I saw Lance Lynn, I forgot to see the teams that, I think the same thing with the Dodgers, too. I think they're wondering that maybe, would he command a little bit less than Giolito, that you can probably just, kind of do it straight up or whatever. So I'm wondering, like, some of the other I know there are other various other guys that are being floated around. So what do you think? I mean, do you think that either Lynn or Giolito or someone else that we're not thinking of could be traded? What do you think?
On the Lucas Giolito thing, I've been listening to a lot of LA sports radio since the start of the season, especially their flagship station. For those of you that want to know what it is, as Lakina would say, Google is your friend. But that's besides the point. And they've been talking about eyeing Tim Anderson and Lucas Giolito in terms of who the Dodgers could get at the trade deadline. Tim Anderson's trade value right now is shot. Unless you're a team that you could bank on turning him around using air quotes, good luck. But realistically, I think if you're the Sox, I think you'll get more back for Giolito if Marcus Stroman on the other side of town is not available at the trade deadline for the Cubs. But Giolito will get the most back in terms of the for the White Sox right now. Like you said, the Dodgers have still a few pieces left in their farm system, so I think that what may say on the surface. Now, Lance Lynn, I know one of the teams I saw rumored was the Texas Rangers on the low last week. Of course, remember he was traded here in 2021. I'm talking about Lance Lynn for Dane Dunning. Of course, now with Jacob DeGrom down, of course. Dane Dunning is one of those young guys that stepped up in that starting rotation for the Texas Rangers along with veteran pitcher Nathan Eovaldi. But if you're the White Sox, of course, on the surface, they're going to say, oh, no, we don't regret making that deal a couple of years ago. But given the way that Lance Lynn has pitched the last couple of years, you think Dane Dunning will be working out fine here in Chicago? I say yes.
Yeah, that might actually help him out a little bit, maybe a change of scenery for him. And also, too, I guess, I think, of course, some of the Cubs players that are being floated around, of course, Stroman, of course, Kyle Hendricks is another name. Maybe Cody Bellinger, he's been playing very well since coming back from injury. So seeing some of the various names that are being floated around, I know Stroman and I think Houston, I think that's probably one of the rumors that I saw. Also, too, because they need pitching. Kyle Hendricks as well. I think some of the other teams. I saw the Rays perhaps maybe being in contention for him. So there's still like a lot of names on both sides. So do you see any one of the Cubs being traded?
I think that Marcus Stroman would be the number one candidate because just like Giolito and the White Sox, he will bring the most back. I'm talking about Marcus Stroman. He will bring the most back. Like you mentioned, Houston could be up there because a couple of their starting pitchers are out for the year. And that's one of been their biggest hurdles, the reason why they're in second place behind the Texas Rangers in the AL West. Stroman does eat up a lot of innings. He doesn't strike out a lot, but he gets the job done and Houston could use a pitcher like that. Kyle Hendricks, he'll bring you something back, but he's, I don't want to say he's an old man, but he's getting up there in age. I know he's been injured the last couple of years or so.
Yeah.
So far, he's done well as of late, ever since he started the season late back in early May. But Kyle Hendricks would bring something back for you, but not compared to Marcus Stroman. Stroman would bring the most back because he's a free agent at the end of the year. Plus, he's a few years, not that much, but he's a few years younger than Kyle Hendricks. So you can get a couple of good years out of Marcus Stroman.
And we'll see maybe if he comes back, to the Cubs, if he does get traded. So that's another little story there. Now, of course, Shohei Ohtani. Of course, those trade rumors are going around since the beginning of the season. The Yankees apparently are the most motivated to trade for Ohtani. This is according to various reports the last few days. So do you see Mr. Ohtani being moved?
As of right now, I'm going to say no, only because if you're the Angels, you don't want to go have it on your record that you traded Ohtani to a team like the Dodgers or the Yankees. Because here's the thing. Are you really going to get true value back for Ohtani? I don't know. And on the flip side, for Ohtani in his camp, let's just say Ohtani gets traded to, you mentioned, like the Yankees, even though most people have it as a hot destination for him in the offseason if he does not get traded. And let's just say his experience is bad. Do you really want to if you're the Yankees, do you really want to take that risk? Do you really want to do that? Or if Ohtani gets traded to a team like, I'm just throwing it out there, like a Cleveland or a Minnesota, you gave up all this farm capital and he's not happy there. Let's just say you barely make it to the playoffs and you fall flat on your face. You can say, well, the risk was worth it because we made it to the playoffs, but you know that he's not going to sign there. And it looks like he may want to stay on the West Coast. Or he may change his mind and go to New York. If he doesn't get traded, of course. But let's say he goes to New York. Making money is not going to be a problem because he's going to make all that money off the field. And with the Yankees, how they roll, how they make money. Remember, they're not just New York City's team. They're national and a worldwide brand. So they're going to make more than enough money back if they choose to sign him. But I don't see the Angels trading him because, remember, they still want fans in the season. Remember, too, Mike Trout is out for the next almost 2 months. And they still want fans in the seats, even though they're not going anywhere. Of course, they're not out drawing the Dodgers. They're a neighboring team out there in LA, even though they're in the metropolis. But I don't think they will get fair value at the deadline. I just don't see the Angels getting fair value at the deadline. Yes, we know teams get desperate around this time, but I don't see a team being so quote unquote dumb enough to sell off everything, knowing that they're not going to get him back in free agency this offseason.
And I see our buddy Brendan Schultz be able to say that maybe how about Houston? But Houston's not as far as New York. But if you're the Angels, do you really want to trade him within your division? I don't think you want to do that. So I don't see. Ohtani, he's been very vocal that he wants to stay close in Japan. That easy for him to travel back and forth, his family to travel back and forth. So if he does go to Tampa or, like I said, Cleveland or Minnesota or the Yankees, do you really want a guy that's going to be depressed going back and forth and whatnot? So I don't know. We know he wants to win. He has said he wants to win, but he also wants family is also very important to him. So I don't know if he wants to. I don't know if he has a trade clause, no trade clause or anything like that. But you don't want to have him go someplace and not be productive because he's not happy there.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, like I mentioned earlier, the Angels will not trade him to the Dodgers. They rather see him walk across the street than trade him and suffer another PR nightmare. So him being traded to the Dodgers, even though let's just say the package from the Dodgers would make baseball logical sense. I don't see the Angels doing that at all. I don't.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. Of course, the Red Sox apparently are in on a couple, top guys from the Cardinals. Jordan Montgomery, the starting pitcher. Paul DeJong, their infielder, and another Jordan Hicks, their reliever. So I'm thinking that they probably want to try to go for one of those wild card spots because they're kind of right there in that. And the Red Sox, I'm talking about it because the Cardinals, they're going to be getting a lot of calls from various teams. So for their guys. So I kind of see a couple of those guys. Like I said, I think Hicks could always go to perhaps maybe the Dodgers because they need relief help. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the Rays because they've got some back. For Montgomery, the other Jordan Montgomery because they got some back end of the rotation issues. It turns out. So, what do you think? I mean, I feel like Juan Sosa has been floating around in various spots. So there could be a lot of guys, a lot of big name guys that could be on the move within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, like you mentioned, good relievers are hard to find, and we know that the White Sox have a bunch of them that could be up, in the sellers market in a couple of weeks. But like you said, Jordan Hicks, he's right up there. Like I said, Tampa could use him. Like you mentioned, Boston could use him. But Boston, even though their plus run differential is still one of the best in that division, they still a few games over 500. Can you convince me that Boston's really going to go? I get the attitude they must go for it every year because that's their standard. It should be. Right. But given the way they play, I'm not really a big believer in them. That's just me personally. And they're not going to win a division. It's going to be Baltimore or Tampa Bay. So you're not going to hop over those two teams. Can you convince me they can hop over the Yankees and Blue Jays? I'm not so sure. The Yankees, maybe if they don't get Aaron Judge back. That situation is a little bit more urgent than we thought. So we'll see about that. But can you tell me that Boston's going to overhop Toronto right now? Can you convince me right now? I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. So I know they feel like they have to maybe do something, I guess, to appease their fan base. But at the same time, though, I think they've been inconsistent too. They're actually are a little better at being inconsistent than as the White Sox. So it'll be interesting to see if Boston. I think Toronto might be in a better spot to perhaps maybe get. I'm sure they're because they need some back end guys and maybe because their offense is they're all good there with the offense. We talked about all the names.
And they can use another starter too.
Yeah, too, and also exactly. So I think that they could probably be in the hit for one of those guys that we mentioned. So it'll be interesting what happens there. And Salvador Perez, who's been with the Royals basically since he got called up, he said that he could allow the rumors that he might want to trade to another contender, perhaps with another ring. So look, who do you think can always use a catcher?
The White Sox. So he stopped hitting against us.
Oh gosh.
I had to get that out of my system. But which teams could use Salvador? Yeah. Which teams could use Salvador Perez? Maybe Tampa. Let's see. Not Baltimore because they got one of the best at Adley Rutschman.
No, they're all
maybe, but not Toronto. Toronto's catcher situation is okay.
Yeah.
Maybe San Diego. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe Arizona. I doubt it, but he'll have a few places. But I don't think the market is going to be wide open as people think as far as him as being a catcher. But you could definitely use him as a DH to give him some days off from catching.
Yeah. I'm sure you'll appreciate that at this point. So I think you probably would prefer maybe being a DH.
Maybe your Mariners.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think they could definitely use an extra bats and perhaps that leadership since he has a World Series ring. So that could probably give them a little bit of motivation too. And I think they do have a lot of depth in their farm system. So they could probably part with a few of their not like lower tier, but their mid tier guys. Perhaps maybe appease the Royals so you can get maybe a veteran like a Salvador Perez to come back here. So it'll be interesting to see. But I'm fascinated to see if he gets moved. So any other names that?
Yeah, our buddy Brandon Schutz on our YouTube page. How about the Cubs? If they're in it,
they do
maybe.
Catcher, but
The Royals will probably ask for the world, and I don't know if Carter Hawkins and Jed Hoyer would do that. If the Royals are asking for the world for him, would it make sense baseball wise? Yes, but if the Royals are asking too much, I don't think the Cubs will pull the trigger. Good idea, but I don't know if the Royals are going to ask for a boat, quote unquote.
Yeah, they just rebuilt that farm, so I don't know if they're going to want to part with a couple of their top. On top of the Cubs, top guys to get Perez, and look, if they're really like maybe 4 or 5 by the time in these next 2 weeks here before the first, I could probably see him maybe making a little bit of a minor trade and maybe not a big blockbuster like a Ohtani or like the other names that we mentioned, but he could be a guy that could probably take a team over the top or at least give him a little bit more experience, especially with the younger teams like the Rays and the Mariners and such. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But yeah, he's another guy that could be moved during the trade deadline. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, like I said, not a bad idea, Brandon, about the Chicago Cubs. But if the Royals are asking for too much, I don't see the Cubs pulling the trigger. He would help that lineup for the Cubs, so he would. But you're worried about if the Royals will ask for too much for him. If they do, I don't see the Cubs management pulling the trigger on that.
Let's just see what happens with that now. Let's talk about the schedule for this the weekend coming up. You got the Padres and the Phillies, 2 teams that probably could perhaps be in the market for a Salvador Perez. We'll see. First game of that series. Boston. Speaking of Boston, they play the Cubs for a 3-gamer starting today.
Rare Friday night home game for the Chicago Cubs outside the playoffs. Interesting.
Yeah, 7:05 start. Yeah, that is a weird. That is kind of weird, isn't it? Right? They rarely play Friday night games, but you don't
want you drunks pissing on our streets.
Right. That. Miami and Baltimore. This could be a great battle between 2 up and coming young teams. That should be a fun series. San Francisco is the first game with that Apple TV Plus. Not doubleheader, but sort of regional coverage for tonight's Friday. So for those of you who are Giants and Pirates fans, you gotta check that first game out. Arizona and Toronto, so another matchup of up and comers. Dodgers and Mets. Mets played a little bit better before the break, so we'll see what happens with that. That's the first game. That's another game in the Apple TV Plus regional action. So all you Mets and Dodgers fans have to stream that game on Apple TV Plus. Milwaukee and Cincinnati.
That's gonna be a good series.
That should be a lot of fun. That could be battle it out. So if you're the Cubs, you want to take care of business against Boston, have those 2 beat each other up. So hey, we can just try to make a little bit of ground. And your White Sox and the Braves. Sorry, they're not going to be very happy talking about the Braves. So
and Lucas Giolito's not pitching this series. How ironic is that? I'm just.
Yeah, Michael Kopech will make his return tonight. And I don't want. Yeah, you go ahead, Sick. I don't want to take the rest of your thunder here for the rest of these weekend series.
Okay, the rest of the weekend schedule looks like this. Washington will face St. Louis in the Show Me State. The Yankees will travel to Colorado to face the Rockies. The Brandon Schultz, Houston Astros will travel to LA to battle Shohei Ohtani and the Angels. Minnesota will be in Oakland. And the Tigers will face Lakina Seattle Mariners. And now your schedule for national TV schedule for Friday. But before we give you that, as Lakina mentioned earlier, the San Diego-Philadelphia series, this is the first time in about 40 years that Major League Baseball has scheduled a doubleheader non-weather-related. And that's going to be for Saturday tomorrow with the Phillies and the San Diego Padres. So look out for that. Your Fox Saturday night baseball game of the week looks like this. Most of you in the country will get the Los Angeles Dodgers in the New York Mets, while most of you in the state of Georgia, in the state of Illinois, in the Midwestern country will get the sorry-ass Chicago White Sox. Lance starting, by the way, perhaps his last start in the White Sox uniform, you hope, against the Atlanta Braves. Against the Atlanta Braves. And, of course, your Fox Sports 1 Saturday afternoon game of the week will take place in Texas between the Cleveland Guardians and the Texas Rangers. And that's at 3:05 on Saturday.
Should be a fun series there. And also the Giants and the Pirates on Sunday for 11:05. They'll be streamed on Peacock. So all you Pirates and Giants fans, make sure to remember that. And also Houston and the Astros and the Angels are your ESPN Sunday night game of the week.
Yes, and that's your Major League Baseball schedule for this weekend as MLB kicks off its second half of the season. All right, stay tuned for more sports and more fun as Second City Sports continues with our buddy Miss Christine, the Queen Manika from KXRB Radio in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We'll discuss everything in sports, entertainment, and more, and everything else in between, and we'll have some more fun. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You're listening to Second City Sports live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Friday edition, real live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago, along with Miss Lakina McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brownhead, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80, that's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow Makina McGee on the Twitter and I can't again the IG.
We have less than 55 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you want to hit us up in the comments section, you could do so by going to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV.
All right, Sid, where do you want to go? Because our girl Christine's not going to come on with us till the bottom of the hour, so we got a little bit of time. Where do you want to steer to?
We'll steer to the world of the NFL. I actually saw this on social media a little bit yesterday. I was watching television a couple hours ago before we went live, and DK Metcalf, the star wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks, and he's one of the top 5 wide receivers in the game, in my opinion. He came out with a list of his top 5 all-time NFL wide receivers. You want to hear him?
Sure. I did not have to say. I did not see this list. I did not see this list on one of my honors. So go for it.
Okay. All right. We'll start from number 5 up through number 1. This is DK Metcalf, the star wide receiver for the Seattle Seahawks. His top 5 wide receivers of all time. Starting at number 5, Atlanta Falcons great and future Hall of Famer Julio Jones.
Okay.
Number 4, Jerry Rice.
Okay.
Hall of Famer. He did play for Seattle in 1 year, but he did most of his damage with the 49ers, as we well know. Number 3, T.O. Terrell Owens, Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, Randy Moss.
Okay.
And number 1, Antonio Brown.
Okay. Number 1, AB. Okay. I mean, I know I've seen because I saw some certain guys trending, and some people say that why didn't he have this guy on? I'm assuming this is from as long as he's watched football. I mean, he's like 29, 28 or 29. So I think people need to kind of sort of I know he had some of the top guys on there. Why didn't he have Michael Irvin on there and some of the other all-time great receivers?
Mm-hmm.
But look, it's just look. I think it's his list, so hey, whatever. But it's good.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know some people say, why didn't he have Marvin Harrison or Larry Fitzgerald or Calvin Johnson? But I mean, look, it's his list, so whatever. I mean, I know he had AB at number 1. I know he trains with AB, for a few years, his first few years in the league. So of course, the guy he's most close to. But I don't have a problem with this list. I mean, okay, whatever.
DK Metcalf is age 25.
Oh Lord! I think he's been around forever. It feels like. I
know, right?
He's only 25, but yeah, I mean, look, this is probably guys that he grew up with, watching, and says he wasn't gonna have. I know some people say, why not Steve Smith? Like I said, Michael Irvin, Isaac Bruce, Andre Johnson, Marvin Harrison. But I think, look, it's fine. I mean, look, I don't mind that list of his. I mean, look, it's his list, so whatever. I know people were kind of getting on him about certain names that were not on there, but it's his list, so whatever.
Yeah, like I said, it's his list. And number 2, those receivers that you mentioned, like the ones that we grew up watching. Yes, Jerry Rice was part of this group when we were watching football. But like you said, why didn't he have Michael Irvin on the list, Chris Carter, Andre Rison, and some of the other guys, and Marvin Harrison? And I'm sure he saw all of them on film.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but he's 25 years old. He didn't watch most of those players we just mentioned just now alive. He wasn't alive then. He's 25 years old, so he was born in I think 97. That I saw via the Google. So those older guys that we mentioned, he didn't see them live. Yes, I'm sure he saw them on tape, just like Jerry Rice. I'm sure he saw Jerry Rice toward the end of his career, but. Most of the guys that we mentioned, he didn't see them live, so he had to see them on videotape and highlights and things along that nature. We talk about this all the time, and especially in basketball, Lakina, especially with that silly LeBron, Michael Jordan debate. We won't get into it here, but the players and fans that are younger than us, they didn't see Michael Jordan live, so the closest thing to Michael Jordan was the late great Kobe Bryant and/or LeBron James, who's still playing now. So we can't get mad at them for not mentioning the names of the past. I'm sure most of them, of course, have great respect for them, but they didn't watch them live because they weren't born yet, or they were too little to recognize their greatness.
Yeah, I know people say, well, look, there's YouTube, but I mean, yeah, you're watching them on YouTube. I mean, look, I know how great Bill Russell was, and guys like Bill Bradley and all them, of course, Will Chamberlain and Kareem and all those guys. But like I said, I have respect for them. But look, they're kind of my second tier. If you ask me for for the list and such, I mean, like going back to the 70s with guys like Terry Bradshaw and Bob Greasy, those guys. I mean, look, I'll put those guys near like my top in my mid tier. But like I said, I didn't watch them, so like okay, I'll just. Lynn's who I think. Look, I know more as an analyst, field analyst, than I have, back in the day because I wasn't born yet. So you're right. Same with you too. So yeah, I think people need to kind of just like if people want to make their list, fine. You can't get upset why they have this guy on the list or that guy. I mean, it's just silly. Look, it's their list. Look, DK's only 25. These are guys that you watch. Look, Jerry Rice was actually still playing when he was born. So right. So. I mean, it's his list, so I don't. It doesn't matter what it doesn't matter. It's just silly.
Yeah, and also too, like I said before, it's a generational thing, and they can only talk about what they can relate to. Yes, those legends you mentioned, they saw them on YouTube, and they saw them on highlight tapes. They watched those old classic shows when ESPN Classic was still running, or when ESPN used to run some of those highlight season films, and also too with these league channels they do now. So with the older players, of course, they're going to say wherever they were watching during their heyday. So it's a generational thing, and we just have to respect that. We can respectfully disagree with them to an extent, but it's a generational thing. We can't get mad at that.
Yeah, so it's it's just going to be very interesting to see what happens. How people really feel about that. But it's just funny how people got on him for a list that he made. That look, he can go by what he saw growing up. So
Right.
It is what it is with that. Now, I know they're going to be doing the all the pomp and circumstance for this year's Hall of Fame class coming up in about a month. But some of the senior class members were announced. The semifinalists for those folks, the senior members, that will be announced for next year's Hall of Fame. The 12 finalists will be announced on each of these groups on the later this month. But there actually are some familiar names. Steve Mongo McMichael on the senior side, and of course, legendary Bear and Virginia McCaskey, the Bears owner. One of the Bears owners in the McCaskey family. She's the oldest, of course, George House's daughter. She's also been named as a semifinalist on the contributor side and the semifinalist side. And it's interesting because, you see some of the names that are on that. I don't know if you got to listen to this in front of you, but you see some of the names that are on there that you thought, okay, I'm surprised this person wasn't already in the Hall of Fame. Guys like Lester Hayes, Roger Craig, Mark Clayton, Steve Tasker, Clay Matthews Jr., Art Modell. I mean, Otis Anderson, Otis Taylor, like Sterling Sharp. I mean, on the contributor side, you got Rude Arledge, of course. He was creator of Monday Night Football. He was sort of his brainchild. Tom Coughlin, Mike Holmgren. I mean, the list goes on. Rich McKay, Dan Reeves, Marty Schottenheimer, who are both no longer with us, unfortunately. George Seifert, Mike Shanahan. Just an amazing list of folks that have contributed in some place for either coaching or playing or just kind of epitomize NFL in general. So, what do you think about some of the names I mentioned? What do you think about Mongo? I mean, I know Mongo, who continue to fight. Mongo, love ya. I know. I heard that his wife said that he smiled. I think Jared Payton, a friend of the show for WGN, he smiled. He saw Mongo smile when he heard about his name being mentioned as a potential senior contributor and so what do you think?
Yeah, I know. First with Steve McMichael, I know it's emotional and heartfelt for Bears fans. Bears fans want him in there. I want him in there too, not just because he's in bad health, but he had the career sacks up there with one of the top guys as far as the sacks with defensive tackles at that time. And so he definitely was one of the faces of the 85 Bears team. He made an impact with that defense and all the years that he played in that Bears uniform. I know you don't want to talk about the 1 year he played for the Packers in '94 before he called it a career, but he was an impactful player. He was a very good player. Yes, especially us here in Chicago remember him for his big personality, but he did his job on the field. He was very much important to the defense as a Richard Dent, who's in the Hall of Fame, just like a Mike Singletary, who's in the Hall of Fame. So he was very much important and Dan Hamlin as so much as the other guys that were surrounding him in the Hall of Fame. Now you mentioned Roger Craig. I think he was the first running back to have 1,000 yards in 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards rushing in the same year. Correct, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Why isn't he in the Hall of Fame? He was much a part of that 49ers dynasty as anyone. We talk about Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. And as I said before, and I'll say it again, much of that defense, I know that we mentioned Charles Haley's name now because of he's in the Hall of Fame. But outside of him, that 49ers and Rodney Lott, that 49ers defense really doesn't get the credit they deserve. Now with it being said, going back to Roger Craig, he was the first NFL running back to have 1,000 yards as a receiver and as a back in the same season. And he was very much important to that offense as a John Taylor or Roger Craig. Oh, sorry, is Jerry Rice or
Jerry Rice.
is the offensive line. So I'm surprised he's not in.
Yeah, that's a little nutty when I saw that. I'm like, wait a minute, he's not in the Hall of Fame? I mean, that's kind of crazy. Like you said, he was a very big part of, I think he won, 3 Super Bowls with the 49ers?
I think so. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I'm a little surprised by that. And Larry Brown, if that's the same Larry, but that might be a different Larry Brown. I don't think that's the same Larry Brown. But, Mark Clayton, I know that people kind of rag on him for not, him and Dan Marino, among some of the some of the other players on those 80s Dolphins teams for not winning the Super Bowl. But I mean, I think he had I think he still holds. Well, I don't know. I think it's something records report, but he held those receiving records for years. So it's sort of ironic that you see some of the names. I know Sterling Sharp. I know there's been a big, clamoring for him to get into the Hall of Fame for many years now. Of course, we know his.
I think he should get the Terrell Davis treatment because that foot injury really cut his career short. Because we talked about the receivers earlier with the DK Metcalf's list. Remember at the time, this was the mid-90s, folks.
Yes.
Jerry Rice, Michael Irvin, Chris Carter, Andre Rison before his troubles came about. We won't discuss that here. But those were your top receivers in the game at that time. Right up there in that group was Sterling Sharp. And he was part of that beginnings of a Hall of Famer named Brett Favre. And trust me, Brett Favre wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame if it wasn't for Sterling Sharp. I know Sterling Sharp's career was cut short 2 years before the Packers won the Super Bowl in '96. But if it wasn't for Sterling Sharp, Brett Favre wouldn't be where he is right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit. I know that there's some of the. I know Shannon, of course, kid, younger brother has been very vocal. I know some of his former teammates have been very vocal about it. So yeah, I mean, we'll see if there's going to be a lot of clamor for that. Another name that I'm a little surprised is not in, Lester Hayes. Of course, with the Pro Bowl for both the Oakland and the Los Angeles Raiders, and. Spent the entire year with the organization. It had 39 interceptions and included a league best 13 back in 1980. I'm a little surprised he's not on there. I mean, look at some of the names. I mean, Clay Matthews Jr. I know that's been a name. I know people have been clamoring for him to get in the Hall of Fame. I mean, of course, you talk about Mongo and some of the other names that are on here. Steve Tasker, who was more of was a punt returner and a kick returner. You know how the Hall of Fame feels about that group of guys. You saw how long it took Ray Guy to get in there. So, of course, play with Houston. Of course, also with the Buffalo Bills as well. I think he was a part of about 3 of those Super Bowls. I think he might have been with them all 4 of those Super Bowl appearances. But Otis Taylor, I mean, that's another name from way back when. I mean, it's a little. Was one of the early the second Super Bowl ring with the Chiefs. So yeah, I mean, some of the names are just it's just very odd that they're not already in the Hall of Fame. But what can you do?
Yeah, I want to talk about Steve Tasker for a minute. Of course, he did great work. His post-career with CBS. Now he's working, I believe he's in his 3rd year with the Buffalo Bills radio network. But he was one of the original special teamers, and he was part of those Super Bowl participating teams in the 90s. And he was one of the best at his craft. He was mostly a special teamer. Yeah, occasionally he played wide receiver. He was a 4th or 5th guy on the depth chart, but he was one of the best cover. He got in there and did the dirty work. So, like you said, with the Hall of Fame, given the lack of respect to special teamers outside the kickers, it's a shame. But Steve Tasker should be in there right now.
Yeah, you look at guys like Ray Guy and Morton Anderson. You saw how long they had to wait. So I don't know what happens there now. Rule Hours. I want to talk about him for a second. Of course, if guys don't know the name, you should. But I don't know. I'll let those of you under 30, I'll let slide. But those of you over 31, I mean, I'm gonna shame on you. If it wasn't for him, Monday Night Football would not be in existence. Even still, people. When he and the commissioner, the NFL commissioner type, Pete Rozelle, got together. And of course, CBS, NBC already had football coverage, so because they didn't feel like they needed it, and they were both doing very well on Monday nights. And so ABC, who was in 3rd place at the time, this was back in 1969. Runar was kind of he was brought in to sort of say, hey, I think we can do this. This could sell it in prime time. So of course the rest was history, and he was the one that kind of spearheaded. Also completely turned around ABC Sports. They got the yellow, the big bright yellow mustard colored blazer that they wore for maybe like about 15 or 12 years up until like the '84 Winter Olympics. Some of the other the cool graphics that you guys saw, they're on YouTube from back in the day for those or especially those '70s Monday Night Games. He was the one that kind of the sort of the creative, genius behind that, and also the technical stuff and the graphics make it a little bit bigger and the numbers a little bit bolder. So if it wasn't for him, we would be seeing some of the advances that we're seeing now.
Yes, and also too, like I said, he should have been a long time ago. Also to introducing sports into prime time, because remember, like sports being played in prime time was foreign in those days, and so they kind of broke the mold as well. Exactly. So
like, how dare you put sports in prime time? Oh my God! I'm sure I'm not
exactly.
That was the case with some of those meetings, but it was sacrilege at the time.
Remember, the NBA took them a while to get their playoff games in prime time. I think 1983 was their first NBA Finals in prime time, because remember, up until that point they were tape delayed. And so, but back to football, they kind of kept up the early stages of putting sports in prime time. That it was sold because you get more people. Now it's commonplace today. But like Lakina said at one time, this wasn't commonplace, folks. And of course. Well, I wanted to bring up this story about the early years of Monday Night Football. Of course, I think we talked about this before. Remember, Howard Cosell wasn't supposed to do that. Remember, it was supposed to be supposed to have been the late great Vince Scully, but because they didn't offer him health insurance, he didn't do it.
Yeah, and then good for him for not doing that. And remember too that first season before I forgot who was it? Yeah, it was before they brought Don Meredith on, of course, a former Cowboy. Keith Jackson was doing doing the first season. That of course they pulled him out of there to of course college football. The rest was history over there. And look, I know some people feel like Monday Night Football has kind of lost a little bit of its luster, but I think bring on Hall of Famers like Troy Aikman and Joe Buck can kind of help sort of revitalize that Monday night. And they have better games, and they can flex some of those games finally. So that can give them a little bit of an edge there too. And I know people prefer the guys from the '70s, the Cosells, the Giffords, and the Don Merediths. Frank Gifford and Don Meredith and Howard Cosell. God rest all their souls, but I feel like Gifford, Al Michaels, and Dan Dierdorf, that's the team we grew up with, Sid. And I feel like that trio doesn't get a lot of respect. I mean, they have some great moments and such. So, it's sort of like, it kind of feels like that they don't get their due. And I want to give them their due today here. Really, now they have the platform to do it.
I'm with you on that as well. Of course, Boomer Esiason joined along after his playing career in the late '90s. Of course, they had that. I think, me personally, that awful experiment with Dennis Miller. There was some of those games on YouTube in full, folks. So if you don't know what we're talking about, please check them out. I think it was on there from '99. I think, was it 90? No, it wasn't 99. I think it was 2000 through 2001 for those 2 years. And and of course, when they switched over to ESPN, I know a lot of people were upset because those games were exclusively on cable, like it still is now. But Mike Tirico, I think did a bad job. It was him and Gruden for a while. Of course, Tony Kornheiser was there for the first couple of years, and it was okay. But it went through its changes, but the brand still remains strong today. Like you say, Lakina, I think they saved it with Buck and Aikman, and I know they don't have this now because they want to do everything in movie motion picture mode as far as their intros. But back in the day, Lakina, Hank, regardless of how you think about him personally, Hank Williams Jr. got you fired up to watch that game, even though you couldn't stay up late because many of those games were duds or it was just late. Because remember, they started at 9 o'clock Eastern time. That was 8 o'clock our time in Chicago. Unless your team was involved, he got you hyped up to watch those games. Those intros I still watch periodically on YouTube. Those were classic intros. They got you going to watch Monday Night Football, and they made it into a prime time event. It made it to where people that don't like sports watch football. That's how powerful that brand was.
Well, like you said, politics. However you feel about his politics, I know. I don't feel the way he does about political wise, but look, he had a heck of a. Once they asked him to do it, I think he was more than happy to do it. That's who he grew up with. So he didn't hesitate when they asked him, "Okay, you want to give us a Monday night theme?" I actually like the older ones from back in the day. They had the pinball one right before then. Some of the other graphics that they use, I wish they'd bring those back. I know they wanted to do have a little bit hotter with the '90s with the music and the graphics and everything else. I actually like the '70s ones where they were actually pretty cool. So I think they can get a nice revitalization with now with Buck and Aikman, but I feel like they can kind of correct itself. I think some of the games will be simulcast both on ABC and ESPN. I think that's what kind of killed it. I don't want to say killed it, but sort of like ruined it a little bit because they pulled it out. I don't know why Disney thought that was a good idea. That was still a nice, even though the games were does, they were still bringing some good ratings. So like I don't understand why they they decided that I'm glad they finally it took them a long time. I'm glad they finally realized that Monday Night Football on ABC, that's kind of like an institution. So I'm glad they brought those games back. The games going back on there this year. I think it'll be like maybe only half the games this year. I think like it'll be a full schedule next year. I gotta double check on that, but yeah, I think they're gonna kind of like slowly lead into it. But yeah, so especially with the writer strike going on as well, I mean, you're gonna be very happy
you might be seeing more on there. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And also too. With them switching to ESPN full time back in prior to the 2006 season, I know that made a lot of people upset, including yours truly, even though we had cable for most of the majority of our lives. But it cuts out a lot of people that want to watch it. But like you said, with ABC slowly getting back into it, especially with this new NFL TV deal, and you may be seeing more games on ABC this year. Without the Bachelorette being scheduled, I get it and make the most money, but. It's kind of revitalized itself. I know it's a new era and all that, but but back in the day, watching those intros with Hank Williams, those were classic. It really got you fired up, getting ready to watch the game. That's what I really miss about the old school Monday Night Football field compared to now.
Yeah, absolutely. So any other names that you're a little surprised by, some of these contributors, the senior contributors and such? I mean, of course, you got Robert Kraft also, too, is another name.
He'll eventually get in.
Yeah, he'll probably get in eventually too. I think Art Modell, you're kind of surprised he hasn't been in already. I know some folks in Baltimore were upset that he took the Colts out of there, but like you guys got a pretty good, solid franchise in the Ravens. So I think they're not gonna with 2 Super Bowls. So I don't think they're too pissed about that anymore. But yeah, I think look, the finalists will be announced, I believe, near the end of the month, if I'm not mistaken, right before this year's class is fully implemented. So yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to see what names are going to be, hopefully, Mongo gets in there, of course, being a part of that finalist and whatnot. So, yeah, so we're interested to see what happens with that. As I can see Sports on Chicago, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. And real quick before, you want to bring her in now or do you want to do it after the break?
Let's do it after the break to give her a little bit more time to come out of the penalty box using hockey terms.
All right. We'll talk to our girl KXRB's Christy Manika. Of course, we'll talk about her White Sox and some of the players that might be traded. Apparently, everybody is available now. Also, sure, she'll have her thoughts on the Northwestern mess that's going on there and a whole lot more. Well, I'm sure we're going to have some sports media news as well coming up next.
And yours surely has something to share with you all that I got from the Southside Baseball Club in my mail yesterday.
Yeah, should be fun. Let's see what I haven't seen it, so you guys are gonna be a big surprise as I am. So
yeah,
a lot to do still here on Second City Sports from Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Our girl Chrissy Manika coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me something.
I finished my homework.
bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on this fun Friday fun edition. This is our last segment of the show for today and our last segment for the weekend as we head into this beautiful weekend. I'm Sid the Kid along with Mr. Lakita McGee, my co-pilot. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Kingdom McGee on the Twitter and at KXRB on the IG.
All right, let's not waste any more time. Let's bring in our third co-host. She's back for her bi-weekly in commentary of sports, entertainment, and more from KXRB Radio in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Here comes our queen, Miss Christine, the Queen Manika. What up, Christine?
Hi, guys. How are ya?
Good.
We're doing great. How about yourself?
I'm happy it's Friday.
Yeah, I know you had.
Yes.
I know you said you had a busy week the last week, so nice you're getting your station in the back there. very strategic.
Thank you. Yes.
It's very strategic there on your part. So okay, let's talk some. Let's get this out the way. I know I want to get the band-aid off. I'm sure you do too with the White Sox. I know you've heard all the various rumors that have been going on about Giolito and Lynn and some of the other. Basically, everybody's basically up, on the market now with the trade deadline coming up in a few weeks. So, who do you think is going to get moved? Who do you think is going to stay? Where?
I really think it's going to be Giolito that ends up getting traded. I think they're going to keep Dylan Cease. I think they're going to keep Liam Hendricks, after all he's been through. And let's face it, this team has gone through a lot this season. There was a new manager in play and new players coming in. You lost some veterans, and it's been a whirlwind season for them. And it's not their year, I think. So I think the best option for them to do right now is not start from scratch, but start with some new energy in the clubhouse.
As we said before, Lakina, I'll say it again. I'll ask Christine this question. Rick Hahn said that this team will be rebuilding from scratch a few years ago following the 2016 season. Of course, look what it's turned into. Back-to-back playoff years, but no World Series titles or no playoff series wins to show for it. I guarantee you this: if they want to rebuild this thing from scratch, the few White Sox fans that you have left that jumped on board a couple of years ago when they won the division, they're going to be gone. And I don't think they're going to sit through another 2, 3, 4, perhaps 5 years of another rebuild. I don't think that's happening. I'll ask you, Christine. Let's just say at the end of the season, no matter what the record is, do you want to sit through another rebuild that's going to take 3, 4, or 5 years?
If I'm a fan, if I'm a true fan, I'm riding with it. Is it going to be frustrating? Yes, like any relationship, it could be frustrating. But if you really believe in this team, and like I said, if you're a true fan, you'd stay on the wagon. You wouldn't get off and just run to the next best shiny toy, if that makes sense. No, you stay with the team.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see. I know that the Dodgers rumors, Gilio to the Dodgers, no Lance Lynn. We talked about it earlier, Sid, and like Eloy. I don't know. Look, I love Eloy, but if he gets moved and we can get something from him, I think that would be fine. So, what do you think? Do you see guys like Eloy and Tim? I mean, maybe not Tim Anderson this year, obviously, but guys like Eloy. Would you keep him? Would you trade him?
I mean, he's injury prone. He's had a lot of injuries the last couple of seasons. So it depends on who would want him, knowing how injury prone he is. That's the issue with that.
All right, before we move on, Christine, did you catch any of the baseball all-star festivities, whether it was Luis Robert Jr. in the home run derby, or did you catch any of the all-star game? If so, what were your thoughts?
And I watched a little bit of the home run derby. I think he did great, Luis. He was smiling. He was ready to go. I think he represented the team well.
How did you like that bat? Did you check out his bat that he was using for the contest? I thought that was sweet.
I thought it was a really cool bat. Yeah, he did a good. I mean, it's a White Sox show up to big events like that, so that was pretty cool.
That really was, and I want to switch gears here a little bit. The Northwestern mess has been. I'll call it that. A mess has been going on. Of course, this has been kind of dominating the news headlines. But of course, with not a lot of sports going on for the most part. What do you think about the news? Did you agree with Pat Fitzgerald being let go? And of course, the baseball coach was also fired. Oh, another White Sox, Brian Anderson, the former outfielder, of course, who was a big contributor for the 05 World Series. He's going to be the new coach at Northwestern baseball. How do that's kind of crazy there. But yeah, what do you think about all the crazy happenings that have been going on at Northwestern this last week?
It's a very tough subject to talk about, just because there are a lot of concerns surrounding not just the football department, but I think within the athletic department, within Northwestern in general. Mm-hmm. As someone who is a journalist, all of us here, what those students did took a lot of guts at the Medill School of Journalism. That is not easy. My theory is this just didn't come out, this story. They probably did their research extensively for about a year and a half. So in order for them to come out with the facts that they did, to come out with the witnesses that they did, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of time, and that's a lot of dedication. So shout out to the journalists that put that story out there, even if it meant them getting scrutinized for it. So it takes a lot of courage and effort for that. As far as Pat Fitzgerald's firing, there are a lot of different stories coming out about Fitz. Whether it's the story that we all read from the school's newspaper, or other players coming out saying, wait, I've never had that experience, or that's never happened to me before. So we don't know the entire story. There's a lot of gray area here. And it would be easy for you and I to speculate exactly what happened. But the truth is, we weren't there. We don't know what happened. We're not there on the practice field every day. We're not there in the games. We're not there in the locker rooms. So is it the right decision? Yes, by Northwestern's part, because it is getting a lot of attention. And Northwestern is not known for having a lot of scandal or having this kind of attention. So yes, I think it's right for them to kind of move in the other direction from Fitz. What's going to happen now? Because it just wasn't, Fitz getting the blame for it. It was all the coaches. So does that mean you just let go of the entire staff at that point? Or will eventually the NCAA get involved and say, all right, this is just too much for you guys as a program. We're just going to suspend you for the season. So there's a lot of different options, a lot of different paths that this can go to now.
Yeah, I think Christine brings up a great point as far as Fitzgerald, the rest of his staff. Usually, when both college and pro, usually when the head coach gets fired, the assistants are free to leave and join other coaching staffs as well. So I assume that's going to be the situation here. We haven't heard anything about that yet, but we'll see what happens with that. I'm with you as far as the journalists at the Medill School of Journalism. I know that's the top journalism school in the country. We know a lot of famous people have come out of there that work in the city of Chicago in particular. But journalism matters, especially with. I'm sure we're going to get to it in a minute, Lakina, with the New York and LA Times, both their newspapers really slashing the sports departments, and which is really sad. But real journalism still matters, even though we're in a social media age. It's not going anywhere. Anybody could put anything out and so on. It just takes one person to believe in it and express like wildfire. But real journalism matters. You saw that in this Northwestern case. But I wanted to get your perspective, Christine, about how the Northwestern University itself handled it, because the story broke around this time last week, of course, after we got off the air. And you know as well as I do, Christine, usually when stories are dumped on Friday night, it's a news dump day. Most people are not paying attention to it because it's the weekend, especially during the summer. College football is not going on just yet. And I think the way that the university handles it, in my opinion, releases stories late at night and just putting out just silly statements, thinking it was all going to go away. I thought it was just crazy to me. I'm being kind using my language because the kids are listening, but I want to get your perspective of how Northwestern, how the actual university handled the situation as far as the news was concerned.
Well, I think because of what Northwestern is and what it stands for, that's why it got so much attention. Because Fitz was the head coach for almost 2 decades, that's another reason why this story got attention. Not to mention the fact that they have been petitioning to get a new stadium, I believe, worth $8 million, $800 million, something like that.
Just to get it
redone.
Yeah.
So I think when you say it was released late at night, I think the Northwestern side, like the administration and stuff like that, I think they were late to it. But the students itself released it, I think, pretty much in the middle of the day on Friday. Again, like what you said, not really thinking about maybe if anyone's going to pay attention to it or if it's even worth something. But it did. It got a lot of attention. And again, we don't know the whole stories. There are players from the article that said, this is what happened to me. I was told that what I was doing was not the quote Wildcat way. But then you have past players and current players on the other side saying, well, wait a minute, this never happened and I never had this experience. So again, we don't know the whole story about what exactly went down with the football team there. But what we do know is that there's a common denominator, and Northwestern saw that common denominator was Fitzgerald. It took him a little bit because that investigation, 6 months, found that he had no knowledge about this hazing or being discriminatory, anything like that, which is why they did the 2-week suspension. It was after the fact, when this story began to pick up more traction, that this is why Northwestern had to take action, because of everything that was coming out, not just in Chicago, but pretty much nationwide. And I remember Fitz putting out a statement, I think it was through his attorney, saying, I had no idea that this was even happening. We talked about the 2-week suspension, and now all of a sudden I get let go. So I'm sure there's going to be more within the next couple of weeks, but I would probably turn some more questions on the investigation and why it took 6 months, and this is all that you can pretty much find. That would be the interesting part.
Yeah, I think Michael Schill, who's the president, and Derek Bragg, who's the AD. I think they're gonna have to do a kind of a presser to I'm sure there's gonna be still a lot of questions folks are asking about that.
And maybe because the players that spoke out in the article, they were from 2005, 2008, somewhere around that time. So there could be, maybe there's a statute of limitations involved. I don't know. I don't know the whole legal system with that, but that's my theory.
Well, there's some of the names there. I know this is totally not the time to talk about it, but of course there are names perhaps maybe being floated around, perhaps maybe to be the next head coach. Maybe a David Shaw, who's done something similar over at who was able to build a pretty successful program at Stanford. I saw Ed Reed, but if you're Ed Reed, do you really want to come into this kind of situation? With Northwestern. Paul Chris, of course, a former head coach. Big Ten, guy. Coached at Wisconsin. Jim Mora. I know there was some other people are saying that maybe also Jim Leonard, who was actually one of the top assistants there, who's also himself was a former NFL standout. What do you think? Is there any I'll ask you, Christine. What do you think? Is there a name that that could perhaps maybe? I mean, you looked how long it took Scott Drew. Of course, that was a totally different situation at Baylor with their men's hoops team. But is there anybody out there right now that can kind of turn around for Northwestern? I mean.
If the NCAA gets involved, I don't think anybody wants to touch the Northwestern team at the moment. I still have a suspicion that when and if the NCAA gets involved, that they're going to suspend the program for a season, because I don't think any coach wants to touch that right now, especially when it's potentially the whole team that's been affected by this and the coaching staff that poisoned this team. That's a tough job to undertake. Not to mention the freshmen now that are probably thinking about transferring out of the program because of this.
I didn't think about it from the angle of Lakina and Christine, but about the NCAA suspending that program for a year, even though they technically did the right thing by letting go of Fitzgerald. We'll see what happens, but I know they don't want to do that because, Northwestern is, quote unquote, Chicago's Big Ten team. I know they bring in money for that Big Ten. Of course, you have bigger programs like Wisconsin and Michigan. They'll do fine, but that could be in play. I didn't think about that, Christine, but, we know that the NCAA is a bunch of crooks, and we'll see what happens if they do the right thing, but we'll see what happens with that. You're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago, the Friday Fun Edition. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. Is Christine. As we talk about sports, entertainment, and more. Christine, did you catch some of the ESPY awards? If so, what did you think about the speech from Liam Hendricks as he picked up an award for battling cancer? Did you have the battle award?
Yeah, I watched the entire speech from Liam Hendricks, and the video. I think it was great. I think the speech was Liam to a T, just by the way he was presenting himself and explaining the situation and how he got to where he was today. I think it's amazing. It's amazing that he went that long without realizing that, oh, maybe I should get something checked out with bumps on his neck.
Right.
You never would have thought someone would have pushed it that far, but when you love the game so much and you feel like you can just keep going, then you're going to keep going. So it's amazing that Liam is here, number one, and just able to overcome something traumatic as stage 4 cancer. And like he said too, his wife seemed like she was really the rock during the treatments, chemotherapy, radiation, and just his whole recovery too. So it's a great story. It's a well-deserved award for him, and just have him keep going, just have him keep going strong and keep recovering every step.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I'm surprised he didn't swear either. I know he said the A word ass, but whatever. But yeah,
I think he was told to keep it PG. I got a feeling he was told to keep it PG.
Probably, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure the producers probably told, let's keep it. Don't, no swear words. There's gonna be kids watching this, so yeah. But some of the big winners, Patrick Mahomes won both NFL player, male athlete, and of course the Chiefs won, a team of the year. Angel Reese beat out Caitlin Clark, for breast breakthrough athlete. I know that caused a little bit of a stir on the women's college.
Yeah.
Michaela Schifrin, the record-breaking championship skier, she won female athlete of the year. Very deserving of that. And yes, Jamal Murray won comeback player of the year. So so it was a great. Of course, Damar Hamlin, honored the Bills medical staff. That was a nice tender moment as well. So it was a great award show all around. if you guys check it out on ESPN. I'm sure it's going to be on ESPN2 this weekend. So check your little listings for that. Now, keep up
and
with
LeBron staying. That's
well,
the other thing.
yeah, right.
And
I meant to
Shocking.
about that. Yeah, I meant to ask you guys about that. Were you shocked about LeBron?
Well, I thought he was going to announce his retirement. I'm like, is this happening? Is this happening right now? And me and Chris thought that he was going to mention something about Bronny for a second, saying that he wants to play with his son. So we were waiting for that part too, but I think it's kind of implied that he wants to play with his son when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I was surprised about what he said. Because we talk about it all the time. LeBron James loves the attention. He loves the spotlight. He loves to coerce things into his and spins the narrative into his favor. And why not? He's been working for him whether you like it or not for his entire career.
Right.
So for him to pull that off, it was actually genius on his part, whether we liked it or not.
Yeah, and also too, his wife almost swore, so that was pretty funny.
That was scripted. That was a cute scripted moment for sure.
That was, yeah. Of course, his little 8-year-old daughter said, "No, mom," and the two boys, Bronny and Bryce, were kind of just like, "What the hell?" So so after that, it might have been planned between the two that they probably didn't know about, but that was a pretty funny moment. Savannah's she doesn't take no crap either, so don't mess with her. Let's keep with the NBA thing. Well, actually, LeBron, D Wade, and CP3, they actually honor Carmelo for his basketball career. That was a really nice moment. I think it was surprising too. It was a surprise to some of the folks in the audience. That was a really nice moment. Now, speaking of D Wade, he actually was just announced that he's going to be joining the ownership group for the Chicago Sky. So, what do you guys think about that?
Chicago guy with the Chicago team, brilliant. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, hopefully they can change the image of that team. Of course, we know that they won the title, WNBA title a couple of years ago. Hopefully they can reach out more to the community, because I know they've been getting a great attendance for their games these last few years. But hopefully they can keep that up, do a better. I think they can do a better job of marketing, be more of a part of the Chicago sports community, because it's still a niche community, especially when it comes to women's sports, especially in this town. So hopefully he can help out there, get a team together to market their product better, because even though they are still getting good crowds there at Wintrust Arena, they could do better. But hopefully they can get better players there.
Yeah. They've actually been able to hang on too with some of all of the defections that they've had too. Of course, Courtney Vandersloot, who's been there since the beginning, she left. Candace Parker, she and the Aces are just, you might as well just give them the trophy again, because they're just playing.
Don't forget Elena Deladon. We had her here a few years ago.
Yeah, and of course some personal stuff. Of course, she wasn't able to stay. But so it was actually So they're still hanging on, which I think is good. But I think most people here, because we all love winners here in Chicago. But I think some people was like, "Oh, you guys winning anytime soon? Okay, bye." That's just how it works. But Christine, let's go back to the NFL for a sec. Go to the NFL for a second. What do you think about the Jets basically being forced to do Hard Knocks? They're
basically forced. I mean, it's because of Aaron Rodgers. If he wasn't on the team, I don't even think they would have been considered, because I remember us throwing around some teams and no one said the Jets. We did not say the Jets was going to be the featured. So that's kind of surprising. It's going to be interesting to see how Aaron interacts with all the guys on the team.
Yeah, as we said before, the NFL's rule is you shouldn't. I'm not going to say you shouldn't. If you didn't participate in the playoffs the last couple of years, you're automatically eligible. If no one volunteers to do it, they are forced to pick a team to do it. Of course, it made sense this year because, as you mentioned, Christine, Aaron Rodgers, this is his first year in the Big Apple, as the Jets try to go back to the playoffs, perhaps win their first Super Bowl since 1969. I think I asked you this question before, Christine. I'll ask it again for those of you new listeners and viewers that joined on our bandwagon. Would you like to see the Bears participate in Hard Knocks somewhere down the road, especially as they're preparing to get their new stadium in a few years in Arlington Heights?
I mean, they should have been on Hard Knocks a while ago with the seasons they've been having the last couple of years.
Right.
So I mean, the time to do it, I think it's past. So until we have another slump, maybe it's sooner than what I'm thinking. Then sure. Why not?
But a lot of the Bears brass don't want to do it, so I'm sure they're probably like thinking they're lucky stars that the Jets were actually forced to do it and not them. So I'm sure they're very happy because I can't see Eberflus being happy having cameras follow him around. He doesn't seem like that kind of guy. So I'm not
Does any coach seem like that kind of guy? Let's be honest.
Yeah, you saw Robert Sala's comments, of course, the Jets head coach. So he wasn't very I'm sure he wasn't very happy when they told him, well, yeah, you're basically being forced to do this, but. It is what it is there. So you got something else, some more stuff? We got a few minutes left.
Oh, yes. Before I forget, I got a very piece of interesting item in my mailbox yesterday. It comes from the Chicago White Sox, and it says, Season Ticket Holder Appreciation Week. Thank you, the 2023 season ticket holders. And, of course, it had a little letter on the back, and it says, Dear Sydney, thank you for your continued support as a Chicago White Sox season ticket holder. Sincerely, your client service team. I don't know if you guys can see it, but what does it say on that pin?
10.
Yeah, it says 10 years of being a season ticket holder. I said, this is my second year, but 2 equals 10. I'll take it. So I was like, oh,
Sox
okay.
math, I guess.
Yeah, Sox math. Thank you. That's the same thing that was in my head this morning. Hashtag Sox math. But
Sox math, I guess.
Yeah. And then, of course, within the last half hour, I'll open up my email. And guess who emailed me? The Chicago White Sox. And I'll read it verbatim. It says, Dear Sydney, recently you received a postcard mailing from the White Sox that included a commemorative pin designed to celebrate your years as a value season ticket holder. Unfortunately, a mix-up in production delivery process delivers some pins in error. We are working diligently with our production and delivery partner to send out the correct pins to our longtime season ticket holders in the next 6 to 8 weeks. We apologize for the error and we'll get you the correct pin celebrating your years as a White Sox season ticket holder. We value all of our season ticket holders and appreciate your commitment to the team. Should you have any questions, as always, please feel free to reach out to our client service representative. So instead of getting a 2-year pin, I got a 10-year pin. For those of you that are season ticket holders for 10 years or more, I would gladly trade you in my pin for a 2-year pin.
Oh, gosh.
What does it matter? You get to keep it. I want to be complaining. I get 2 pins. Okay.
They say they want that pin back. So, I would say, keep that. Keep that.
I guess 2 equals 10. All right.
All right. Well, that's, like I said, that's Sox math for you. Soon to be a Hall of Famer, I think. I'm sure he's going to be in the Hall of Fame in a few years. Richard Sherman is a candidate to be Skip Bayless's new partner on Undisputed. This is according to Andy Marchand. What do you guys think? Of course, they're not in production right now. Of course, the Rays have not been very good since Shannon Sharp left. Mm-hmm. So, what do you guys think? I know there will be some other names being floated around, of course, with Jalen Rose, former of ESPN, and among others. So, what do you guys think? Sid, I'll start with you.
I think we threw his name around as one of the leftovers. I know we talked about it on this show. Like you mentioned, Jalen Rose and Keyshawn Johnson, both formerly of ESPN. I don't know what their contractual situations are, if they could have gotten out of those deals. If they wanted to do that show. And number 2, Skip Bayless wanted to work with both of them. So we'll probably never know right now with the situation with those 2 gentlemen. But I think I said Richard Sherman before as a dark horse candidate because he's a very smart guy. Of course, he was part of that Seattle Seahawks team in the last decade. They won a Super Bowl, went to 2 Super Bowls, won 1. Of course, he did a great job last year on Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. So I wonder if that's going to affect his duties as far as this year on Amazon Prime. Sure, you get that job with FS1. But I think it's I'm not going to say a safe hire, but I think it's a good hire. And it's going to be interesting to see, can Skip Bayless jerk around, no pun intended, Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman is a very smart guy. And Skip thought that he could do the same thing to Shannon. But Shannon, as we saw, he has strong tanks outside of football. It's very respected without the industry. And I think Richard Sherman has the chance to do the same thing. I think you can see Skip's tricks coming up the way. But I think if Richard Sherman gets that job, I think he'll be fine. It'll bring some respectability to that program.
Right. Christine, what do you think?
Yeah, those are 2 big personalities coming together. So it would be interesting to see how they handle that balance power, just because you do have Skip Bayless, big personality, Richard Sherman, bigger personality, and he's got the brains to back it up. So that should be an interesting combination.
Oh boy, I give this thing one more try. I know he has talking about Skip's making 7 figures over there at FS1. I know they have to keep the show going, but I'm hoping this is going to be the last stage ever, because if it does flop, yeah, I'm hoping that that's the end of that show, because I know I'm over that show at this point, but it is what it is with that. Some more breaking news here. The Suns have agreed to, we talked about it the last few weeks, they've agreed to start showing their games, also the Mercury games too, on CBS 5, which is their Phoenix affiliate over CBS affiliates, which means it'll be on broadcast television. So of course they pulled away from the regional sports from Bally and for those, and now they're the latest team to join the local on free television. So what do you guys think of that news that's come down the pike?
You know, the trouble that Diamond Sports has been having with Bally's, that's the company that owns Bally Sports, with the uncertain future of traditional cable television, with subscriptions of people subscribing to cable going down. You're going to see a whole lot more of this. And as we talked about, like I said, with the Phoenix Mercury, now with the WNBA team there, but we already seen with the 2 NBA franchises, with I believe the Utah Jazz and the Phoenix Suns moving their games over to regular TV, broadcast TV, and of course, with the option of streaming as well. I think this is going to be an eventual trend for all your professional teams going forward. I want to see what hockey does with the NHL come next year, because I think 13 or 15 of those teams have their games broadcast on Bally Sports as well. So I want to see what they'll do.
Christine, what do you think?
I think they're trying to reach their audience as a whole. I think they're trying to find ways to make it accessible for all their fans to watch, not just a select few. So they're trying to do what they can, especially when Bally Sports is kind of dropping the ball here, literally.
Yeah, shows could be interesting to see if any, and also to look out for the Chicago team. I'm sure Jerry Rimes is going to be looking at this very carefully. So we'll see with their contracts with the Sox and the Bulls and the Blackhawks too coming up after next season. So could be
October 2024, I believe.
2024. Okay, so yeah,
I believe,
right. So that might, so it could be. We'll see what happens with that. Now, anything else before we disperse, guys?
Yeah, Christine, tell us about the special broadcast that you did last week.
Oh gosh, no, that was nothing. We do our remote shows like after, so I'm on like 6 until 10, and then sometimes we go on different locations to do remote shows. So we were just out there last week doing a show on location. So it's usually just one of us goes out there, and I went. So it was nothing. There was nothing special about it. Trust me, it's a normal part of the job.
Oh, sure, Green your faithful public. Thank you for listening.
Right, exactly.
Pretty much.
Yeah, all right. So so you got baseball's back. Of course, you got Wimbledon, breakfast at Wimbledon. Both the men's and women's finals will be over the weekend.
I'm mad that Madison Keys lost. She was one step away from reaching the final.
That was tough. Yeah, that was a tough loss for her. That was a
she
tough
lost
one.
the straight sets. Damn.
I know. Yeah, that was pretty bad. But you've got Djokovic. He'll go try to get his third Grand Slam this year. Of course, he'll get it too. Yeah, I mean, Carlos Alcaraz. I mean, I like him. He's been there for a few years, but I don't think he's there yet. I think Djokovic is on a mission. I know this probably might be his last shot to get that Grand Slam. So this will be 7 or 8 Wimbledon. So make sure you guys check that out on Saturday and Sunday on ESPN, and WNBA, MLS, WUSL. As they're geared up for the World Cup. Well, apparently, I guess they can't sell the tickets out there in New Zealand. They're not really big fans of soccer down there. So, that's pretty brutal. But on that note, you follow me at Keenan McGee on the Twitter, and Akil's going to get on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. And you can follow me on Threads as well at SidKid80. Once again, at SidKid80 on the Threads. And Christine just disappeared on us, but we'll give you her Twitter handle. You can follow her on the Twitter at @Manika_KXRB. Once again, that's @Manika_KXRB. She's back. I had to do your job for you, Christine. Can you hear us?
That's fine. I had a phone call coming in.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, that's okay. That's okay. Of course, you catch Sports on Chicago every Monday, every Friday, right here on the YouTube and Facebook pages, all right there for you.
Yes, and we'd like to thank Mark Grote from 670 The Score, and of course the lovely Miss Christine, the Queen Manika from KXRB Radio in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, for joining us today on the program. As we leave you right now, you can follow Sports on Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast at Warp Media Podcast at WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are available on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And please give Warp Media a follow on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at WARR Media. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Yes.
All right. Of course, you can Sports on Chicago anytime, anywhere on Roku TV.
Roku!
Exactly. So just whatever device you got, where you got the stick or whether it's right there on your apps, on the App Store there, just type in Sports on Chicago. You can catch our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas, What's Up Cuz, and some other shows. I'm sure there's going to be original content. It's available anytime, anywhere.
Yes. All right, Lakina, take us home.
For Sid and Christine, I'm Lakina. Stay dry out there. I know it's been raining a lot in various spots of the country, so make sure you guys just stay safe and stay cool. For Sid and Christine, I'm Lakina. This is Second City Sports on Sports in Chicago. We'll be back Monday. We'll see you then.
Goodbye, Lancelin. I hope.
Oh dear.
Yeah.